Hello, my name's Toby Thompson. I'm here today with Tony Gerth, DBA student here at Cranfield. Tony, you're looking at the first 2 years of CIO, Chief Information Officer's transition into an organization.
Yeah, that's right. I'm interested in looking at the newly appointed CIO, the transition years in the first 2 to 3 years of their appointment, and how they're effective, how do they transition into the organization, how do they make an impact.
Very precise. You came with that very precise unit of measure, the 2 years, with that individual in
No,
mind?
I wouldn't say that. I came with just an overall, seems like an interesting problem around a high failure rate of CIOs, Chief Information Officers. How do they adjust? There's a lot of academic literature and practitioner literature around that, but I think as the last year and a half has progressed, my topic certainly has become sharper.
More focused. So there must be a pain there. You say that sometimes CIOs don't always succeed. What is that pain that organizations are feeling?
Well, there's a number of, from an organization perspective, obviously it's very expensive to recruit an executive, and even more expensive if that executive is not a success, especially in the first 2 or 3 years of their appointment. So that's the organizational issue, but there are also other issues that come up. It's not too good for the CIO himself or herself as well if they don't fit the organization. So how they make that adjustment, how effectively they make that adjustment makes a big impact.
So your focus in that year and a half that you've been studying this topic is narrowing to a good effect, or is narrowing too much for you?
No, I think it's important to narrow. I think it's probably fair to say most doctoral students, and myself included, come with a reasonably broad idea of, this is a problem, type of thing. What do we do about it? But as you get into, especially the academic literature, and you start to understand what's required to do the DBA, you realize that you're probably not going to cure cancer with your thesis, but you can certainly address a very focused problem.
So you'll walk away with some recommendations and prescriptions?
Yeah, absolutely.
A better idea.
Absolutely. Certainly a model that explains the process better than has been before, and hopefully that explanation then sheds some light on how to be more effective and successful in that transition.
So say some more about that panel process that is part of the DBA, the supervisor and the panel.
Yeah, right.
Part of that. How is that mettling, focusing, helping you focus on that topic?
Yeah, it's a huge help. It's a huge help. Starts with your supervisor, of course, and somebody that you work with very closely in identifying the research problem and relevant bits around that literature to research, how to approach the problem. But the panel itself then is, broadens that input that you get from other academics to really help say, oh, well, that's an interesting problem. That's nice if it's affirmation, but also, you need to really focus this thing down to something that you can research, something that you can get done in the next 2 years, which is really important to me, but yet still something that'll make a contribution to the academic body of knowledge.
You mentioned academics many times now, and yet you're not doing a PhD, you're doing a DBA.
Yeah,
correct.
Say
a little bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. I'm doing the DBA primarily because it's a more accelerated program, number one, and accelerated, but also because there's a closer link between the academic problem and the business problem. And because I came with an idea of more of a business problem, I've sort of slid into the academic research, to focus that versus maybe what a typical PhD student would do.
And briefly, why Cranfield?
Why Cranfield? That's a very good question. So I did some initial searches. I'm American. I'm sure that's obvious to you. I'm American. I was looking for programs that were focused on part-time students, had a bit more of a practice focus, and there really isn't much like that in the U.S. And I came upon Cranfield and a few others. The other thing that hit me on Cranfield was the timeline. I thought was something I could commit to. I thought the program was rigorous enough to help me hit that milestone, because I think that's very important too. And also my supervisor, Joe Peppard, I had read his research in the past, so I was familiar with the type of research that he did. So for me, it was both a program fit and a supervisor fit that made a huge difference. And I was accepted at one other program, and I chose Cranfield, much more rigorous application process, which I actually felt like was an indicator of the quality of the program overall. And I also recognize Cranfield as a world-class institution, and that made a big difference to me.
Always good to hear. You're a good advert for Cranfield.
Yeah.
Tony, thank you very much indeed for your time today.